Some books are not written to be read. Some are written only to be forgotten. And some, when read, fracture reality itself. Around 500 BC, in the heart of Rome, beneath the shadows of towering pillars, a woman remained silent in a hidden temple. But her silence was like a scream that deafened the gods. Her name was Sibyl, a prophetess. But not just any prophetess. What she spoke were not mere prophecies. They were warnings. Not from gods, but from what lies beyond the gods. After Sibyl was confined to the temple of Vesta, she didn't speak for months. Then, one night, her eyes began to bleed on their own, and by morning, she started to write. She wrote without stopping for 7 days. Her trembling hands spilled ink onto aged parchment by the light of oil lamps. Every word seemed to carry the weight of collapse. Every sentence felt like a death sentence. She wrote 9 scrolls, each one sealed, each one cursed. The Roman Senate selected 13 people to read the texts: 3 priests, 2 imperial advisors, 4 seers, 1 assassin, 1 former executioner, and 3 unknown figures, simply called the witnesses. The 13 entered the chamber. The doors stayed shut for 3 days. On the 4th morning, only one emerged, a priest. His eyes were hollow, and he whispered just one thing: "These books speak." From that day on, 6 of the books were burned. The Senate claimed they contained heretical blasphemy, but the truth? One of the scrolls described the fall of Rome in terrifying detail, and to stop it, they destroyed the books. 3 remained. These became known as the Sibylline books and were moved to the secret Roman archives, a predecessor of the Vatican. Centuries passed. Temples became churches, gods were forgotten, but Sibyl's words were etched beneath the skin of time. Could Sibyl's prophecies still exist, hidden? And if someone started rewriting them, what would that unleash? Inside the Temple of Vesta, no light burned for 3 days. 13 were sent in to read the scrolls Sibyl had written. The doors were sealed. The incense on the walls had long gone out, and the air turned heavy with mold, smoke, and ink. On the 4th morning, only one emerged, an old priest, his skin pale, hands trembling, and his eyes completely white. No pupils, no iris. When asked what he saw, he only whispered, "These books are still writing." The priest had gone mad, but the scrolls remained under study. The 7th scroll bore a forbidden symbol, a spiraling eye within a triangle. At the center of the eye, a strange glyph, and beneath it, a Latin phrase: "Veritas ex sanguine." Truth is born of blood. The Senate declared 6 books were to be burned, only 3 would remain. But before the order was enforced, one scroll was stolen. The thief was a sorcerer, Cassius, an advisor to the Senate. But Cassius believes Sibyl's words came not from gods, but from something older. He fled to an abandoned stone monastery outside Rome. There, he worked in isolation for 4 days. On the 5th day, the monastery went up in flames. No source of ignition was found. Cassius' body was discovered, lying at the exact center of the carved symbol. His eyes were missing, the skin on his hands was peeled away, and his tongue had been ripped out. Beside him, A single stone slab remained. Etched upon it, if the speaker is silenced, the prophecy finds its own voice. And carved beneath, when the chain breaks, first comes the eye, then comes time. No one had seen this before. The prophecy was finishing itself. It didn't need to be read, because it wasn't just predicting the future, it was creating it. Years later, after these events, a secret order was formed, the Wisdom Unsealed. Their goal wasn't to fulfill the prophecy, but to stop it. Its leader, Rufus Valerius, wrote in a hidden journal, "Sad prophecy is no path. Prophecy is a damnation. Each line tears humanity apart, and Sibyl's whisper still echoes in stone." The prophecy now behaves like a living entity. Even unread, it functions. It feeds not on words, but on remembrance. The seventh scroll of Sibyl was unlike the rest. It didn't describe a disaster. It summoned something. They called it the seventh god. No name, no form, only a single chilling description. Born outside of time, devourer of light, a shadow before whom even gods kneel. The final verses of the scroll were memorized by a monk just before the manuscript was burned. But one day, the monk stopped speaking. He simply placed a finger over his lips and drew a symbol. Then, his eyes ruptured, and his breath escaped not from his mouth, but from under his nose. From that day on, the symbol was called the silencing shadow. Wherever it was drawn, silence followed. Church bells fell mute, children ceased crying, even the wind refused to blow. In Sibyl's manuscript, it was written, "The shadow is not called by name. It arrives when remembered." So the more people spoke of the prophecy, the closer the entity came. AD 1210, Northern Italy, a small village, San Lorano. The villagers began having the same nightmare every single night. The sky, pitch black, no moon, no sound. But from the void, a body emerged, woven from darkness. It had no face, but it had eyes, eyes that turned anything they looked at into shadow. One man awoke and carved these words into his home's wall. "I saw him. His eyes look beyond time. He does not speak. He waits." That week, 17 people drowned. But there was no water. Priests who investigated the deaths found parchment fibers lodged in the victims' throats, as if someone had stuffed paper inside them. The seventh god had no name, but it had a purpose. Born of silence, fed by knowledge, and growing stronger the more it is remembered. This entity didn't slay gods, it erased them. Once spoken, the gods simply forgot it existed, because remembering it meant being forgotten by it. The shadow of the seventh god isn't a name, it's an infection, a thought, a memory, a contagion of remembrance. Remember this: to summon a being, you don't always need to speak its name. Sometimes, not forgetting is enough. Year: 1963. Location: Vatican Secret Archives. File name: Veritas Knox 73. For centuries, the Vatican had guarded the last 3 books of Sibyl, but officially, they never existed. 2 weeks after the death of Pope John the 23rd, a document was leaked. It contained a single, chilling note. "The 3rd book has been opened for reading. The text is still moving. The parchment does not age. The words are changing. The Holy Archive Department labeled it a demonic anomaly, but the truth was far more disturbing. The book was still being written. That same year, a secret rite was performed in the oldest crypt beneath the Vatican. Only 7 people were allowed to attend: 2 high priests, 3 exorcists, 1 Jewish Kabbalist, and 1 mute female oracle. Their goal? To seal the words leaking from Sibyl's scrolls. Because some phrases in the text had physical effects when spoken aloud. One example: Aurum sum virum. I am the voice born in the mirror of time. When this phrase was read aloud during the rite, every lamp in the chamber exploded. The oracle collapsed and scribbled this message: I didn't hear it, but it echoed inside me. As the rite began, silence fell. Only verses from Sibyl's writings were spoken. But as it progressed, the stones in the ceiling began to drip. Humidity in the room rose above 90%, and the book turned a page on its own. On that fresh page, a new line appeared, one that had never existed before. The more you seal me, the more I write. The more you burn me, the more I spread. The more you forget me, the more I am born. The archivist tried to censor it with red ink, but even that changed nothing. 3 days later, 5 of the 7 participants were dead. 1 body was never found. All that remained was a message carved into the stone wall of the chamber. We did not break the seal, but those who sealed it regret it. Only 2 survived, the Kabbalist and the mute oracle. The oracle never spoke again, but she left a handwritten note. Sibyl did not simply predict time, she guided it. And her rite is still unfolding. Perhaps the Vatican still guards those books. Perhaps no one dares touch them anymore. Today is the year 2025. And still, no one knows where Sibyl's scrolls are. Official records claim the books were destroyed. Yet, in some leaked audio tapes, the sound of turning pages can still be heard. In 2018, a researcher discovered a microfilm smuggled out of the Vatican. It contained a single line marked in red. Prophecies are not read. They are lived. And every generation births its own apocalypse. That same year, beneath an abandoned chapel in Rome, a secret chamber was uncovered. Inside, a single chair, a scroll box, and a circle drawn in black ink on the wall. In the center of the circle, one word: Septimus, the 7th. Embarked inside the box was a journal, bound in goatskin. It contained 77 Latin sentences, each carefully dated. The first 76 described past events with eerie precision, but the final entry had not happened yet. When the gate opens, the shadow will become the word, and every viewer shall carry a piece. 3 days after discovering the journal, the researcher lost his sight. Doctors found no medical cause, but in one final audio log, he was heard whispering, "The 7th God has called me, because I thought of him." Today, people believe Sibyl's curse is over, but the prophecies no longer live in books. They exist in videos, in words, in algorithms. If each viewer remembers what they hear, if each memory becomes a whisper to another, and each whisper echoes again. Then the prophecy is rewritten. There's no need for books anymore. You watched, you thought, you chose not to forget. If you're wondering whether this story is real or just fiction, maybe you're asking the wrong question.